What's up everybody, Sam Smyers here. Today I want to show you how to make 5 essential tech house basses, and I will be making these basses in Serum. Now before we get started today, if you are watching this video, then you probably have seen some of my other videos, so please go ahead and subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. And also please go ahead and give this video a like to help with that YouTube algorithm. All right, let's go ahead and jump right into it. I've been remaking a lot of tech house sounds lately, and I've been listening to a lot of tech house. And these are going to be 5 basses that I think are really important for you to know if you do want to make tech house. And I think once you know how to make these basses, then you'll know how to make just about 90% of every tech house song. The first bass is going to be your tech house sub. So let me go ahead and play you what this will sound like. And when I go through these examples, I will play you the sound with some drums by itself. And I'll just have kickstart on all of them, just because you are going to want to sidechain all of your basses. So this will be your tech house sub. Let me solo it for you. Pretty standard basic sound. And for this one, this is a sound that I made for the song Make Me Feel by John Summit. So you can see I've got that saw wave and I've got some effects on there. So the first way that you can do a sub is you can leave it on this default preset for oscillator A. And I'm gonna go ahead and just lower the octave -2 because I have the MIDI set around C3. So I like to just lower the octave -2 when I'm creating presets instead of playing the actual MIDI on a lower octave. So we can have this saw wave here, and then oscillator B, I'm going to put this onto basic shapes again and then go to the square wave. And then you can add on your filters. So MG low 24, usually put this cutoff around 200 hertz or 300 hertz, and turn it on for A and B and raise up that drive. Turn down the octave on oscillator B. Or we could even play around with the octave. So I could do -1 on oscillator A. It's kind of loud. So that would be the basics of how to just create your sub. Now the way that I did it was I just left it on the saw wave, and then I lowered this octave -2, and I used this sync option. And let me show you what happens when I raise up the sync. It gets a bit more gritty, so I just had this sync on, and I'm gonna turn my voicing on to mono. And what instead I'm going to do is, instead of putting the filter on after my oscillators, I'm going to add on some distortion and then put on my filter. So I can add on the tube distortion and raise this up. And I could even add on the filter in the actual distortion. But I'm going to add it on as using the filter FX. So I can add on the distortion there, and then maybe I want to add on some more EQ. So I could add a low end boost. And then I could add on the filter after that, and this is where I can cut off that top end. And I can raise up the resonance a tiny bit and the drive. And you can play around with this little EQ bump depending on where you want the focus of that bass to be. But that's basically how I did the sub for that one preset, this one modeled after Make Me Feel by John Summit. And let's play that with some drums. So now the second tech house bass is going to be your saw wave pluck, and that's going to sound like this. And with some drums. So in this pluck example, I've got some release going on and some sustain, so you can hear it ring out a little bit more, but you could shorten that release and make it a bit tighter. So let me show you what I would do for this preset. So basically we can leave it on the default, lower the octave -2. Let's raise up this level. Then I'm going to adjust the envelope. Give it some release, turn my voicing on to mono, and then I can go to my MG low 24 filter, and then assign envelope 1 to the cutoff. Hit Shift and Option to make this modulation unipolar, and then I can play around with this modulation. Let's turn up that drive and that resonance a tiny bit. And you can play with the modulation on the cutoff depending on how bright you want that pluck. And even if I wanted to do like a filter 12, 18, I could do that also. So let's just go and play this again with the drums. I've noticed with these tech house basses is that they usually don't have too much top end in them. And so in order to actually hear these, you probably need some good headphones or some speakers to hear the low end in these basses. But if we do want to have a bass with some high end, then we can move on to the third type of bass. And I call this one the Reso Pluck. And let me play you what this sounds like. So we can hear that resonance going on. It has a bit of an acid bass feel. Let me play it with some drums. So kind of like that song by Chris Lake called Deceiver. So let me show you how I would remake this in Serum. So let me go ahead and initialize this preset, and I will go ahead and put this onto basic shapes, do this square wave, take it down -2, and then oscillator B, I'll leave it on the default, take it down -1 octave, raise up that unison to 2 and lower that detune. And then we'll go ahead and turn our envelope 1 into more of a pluck. Turn this voicing on a mono, go to my filter, and I can do MG low 24 or 18. So once I do that, then I can assign my envelope 1 to the cutoff, hit Shift and Option. And to get that resonance, I have to raise the resonance knob up pretty high. I'll turn this on for A and B. Raise up this drive. And then from there, you can really just play around with the cutoff and the modulation. Or even your filter. Maybe I can add some fat. Maybe I can play around with the envelope 1. And so that's basically what I would do for that resonant style of pluck. Let's play it with the drums one more time. And sometimes you might hear this layered on top of another bass. So if you do want to layer this on top of another bass, then cut off the low end. So you could go into your effects, EQ, cut off all the low end, and then put some kind of sub below it. Now the fourth type of bass is going to be our FM style bass using the FM modulation. So let me play you what that would sound like. And this is going to be modeled after the song Disconnected. So we've got a bit of that knock sound. Let's go ahead and play that with some drums. A little bit different from a FM style bass that you might hear in Deep House. So let me show you what I might do for this sound. Let's go ahead and initialize that preset. So for FM basses, you can really just use a sine wave. Let's go ahead and lower that -2. And then for oscillator B, I'll also do a sine wave, and I'll lower this -2 octave, lower this level. And then I'm going to use the FM from B, raise that up. And you can also play around with the octave on your oscillator B. So let's go ahead and shape it more like a pluck. So envelope 1, I'll shape like this. And then envelope 2, I'll go ahead and make it look like this. And then I'll use envelope 2 to assign it to that FM from B. So if I did that, that's what would be more like a deep house, but I'm going to do the -2 octave. And then to get more of a knock, I can go to my LFO 1, shape it like this, turn on envelope, turn off BPM, raise this rate up. And then I can go to my matrix and assign this LFO 1 to the global master tuning. And I got to click on this little arrow here because it sets it bipolar. So you see the arrows going both ways. So I got to click it so it just goes to the right, which means it goes unipolar, and then I can raise this up. And now we hear that knock sound. But you got to raise that rate up on your LFO 1. And then I can add on a filter. So let's do MG low 18, and I'm going to use the envelope 2 to this filter. Maybe just to filter off some of that knock. and also just to use this drive knob. And I can add some tube distortion. And then maybe I want to add some hyperdimension for some width. So you can play around with that, and then you can also play around with some EQ. Maybe you can find some mid-range to add back. And then with some drums again. And then if you don't want it to be wide, you can just take off that hyperdimension. And so that's going to be the fourth sound, the FM styled bass. So the fifth styled bass is going to be that knock styled bass, which is probably one of the most popular styles of bass in tech house. You can use a 808 bass drum, or you could use a kick drum or even a tom drum to do this, but I just made it in Serum. And so that's just going to sound something like this. And it just sounds like I'm doing some kind of kick rhythm. And this is going to be based off of the song Strut by Kyle Walker. So let me play that with some drums. And I can add some more distortion. And so I've got the filter on in that distortion. So let me show you how to make that sound. So let me go ahead and initialize that preset, and I'm going to set it to basic shapes, low the octave -2. So it's pretty low. Let's raise up that level. And then we'll shape our envelope 1 to be like a pluck. Give it some release. Adjust the attack there. And then I got to adjust my alpha 1. So I'm going to adjust the alpha 1 like that, turn on to envelope, turn off BPM. And then I'll assign this to the coarse tuning. And I don't need to go into my matrix and do the global tuning because I'm only using one oscillator this time. So I'll hit Shift and Option, so it only goes one way. And I can play around with this coarse tuning, so I can do 24. I could do 12. But I like that at 24. Let's turn my voicing on to mono, and I can go in and add my distortion. So you can play around with the drive and the mix. And you can play around with this filter. And then I could even, if I don't want to just do that sine wave, I could do something like the analog BD sine. And instead of using the distortion, I could raise this wavetable position up, and then it'll give me some distortion just from this wavetable. So that's going to be how you create that knock style of bass. So those were 5 different tech house basses that are very popular in tech house. If you do want to grab any of these presets, I'll put them down below for you to grab for free. If you enjoyed this video, please go ahead and give it a like, and also please subscribe to my channel if you are not yet subscribed. And if you would like to check out any of my Serum preset packs, I'll put links down below for those as well. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time.